All right, No Pod Nation. We are excited for this day. We've been waiting a long time for this day. If you're a new viewer or listener, my name is Jeremiah. Normally, my buddy Warren is here with me. Warren is in Minnesota right now, but we wanted to get this intro recorded and out so that way we can get our interview with Craig Kilborn up and going. In full disclosure, which is how we've always done No Pod, is just we're always honest with you, right? And so Warren and I, we did the interview with Craig Kilborn on Sunday, and we were as giddy as little schoolboys get, and we recorded the next day an intro that would have gone right here, and so we recorded that. Went about maybe 5 minutes or so, and Warren today was editing that footage, and he said we sounded pathetic, and so. Apparently we were pretty embarrassing. If you would have heard it, we were just I think just gushing, and we're so giddy with excitement. Apparently, it didn't make for good podcasting. So that footage will go into the No Pod vault, and you will never hear it except maybe in 50 years, whenever we're dead, and some maybe they'll release it with a DVD or something like that. So on the outset, I just want to say this was just crazy for us. This was if you haven't been listening to our podcast. Months ago, I mentioned Craig Kilborn's name and about how much I used to love him and I've been missing him in the zeitgeist. And Warren was like, "Oh my gosh, Craig Kilborn! I haven't thought about Craig Kilborn forever." And we both just kind of talked about how awesome he was, and we kind of made it into an ongoing bit at the end of each of our episodes where we would just plea for Craig to come on, and we would post those on Instagram and tag him. And eventually, he started responding and then said he would actually come on our podcast. So this thing that just like organically started as this fun little bit that we would do at the end of our recordings actually resulted in us being interview my like all-time hero of my favorite TV personality. So just unbelievably cool. So two things off the get-go, because we are terrible podcasters. We did not let Craig plug his podcast, The Life Gorgeous. At the end of it, we just kind of skipped over that. Not that like he needs our 40 listeners necessarily, but go check it out, The Life Gorgeous. It's a great listen. And then I also have a message for those Craig Kilborn fans who maybe have found their way to this interview. I am one of you. We are a team together. We are people who have loved him on SportsCenter, Daily Show, but especially maybe the Late Late Show, and have just missed his voice, his comedic voice out there. And so I can't believe that we got him for this interview. And if I were you, if I was listening to an interview, but it's two Joe Schmoes interviewing my TV hero, I'm sure I'd be annoyed the whole time because they're asking terrible questions or would not be following up in the way I would. Totally get it. We tried the best we can, so hopefully you still enjoy it. And now, my dear Ryans, please enjoy There Is No Podcast with special guest Craig Kilborn. But first, a cleansing breath from the man himself.
So you are recording now, right?
Correct.
And my name's Craig. I'm just confused because I get bombarded with the young people who want me to do their podcast. I don't know which guys you are. Are you the guys from Florida or Oklahoma or upstate New York or Illinois?
Illinois, Central Illinois.
Oh, you those guys. You
Yes.
guys
Those
made
guys.
fun of me for talking
No.
about my Timberwolves.
No,
We
sir.
love it, Craig.
I know that's why I'm doing it. You guys were like, he'll just talk about the Timberwolves. He doesn't even care, which is a very good point.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, Craig, because I feel like it's in line with what we're doing here. And obviously we don't have nearly the amount of viewers and listeners that you have, but we're just going to talk about whatever we want. There is no format to this podcast. We don't care.
So it must be going very well then.
We're having fun.
How long have you done it?
Yeah, so the problem, or not the problem, or maybe it is the problem, was we peaked at about 40 listeners. Probably about 5 or 6 were us checking to make sure the podcast was working. Another 2 were like our wives listening. And then Warren had to come down with cancer last year, which could put us on hiatus for about 6 months. And then we came back on, and
God bless you. I hope you're okay, buddy. You doing all
Yes,
right?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. This is actually, I've got my chemo curls coming in here. Do you like that?
Yeah, you look good.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, you guys having fun? That's important.
Yes, we're having fun. We're enjoying what we do. I don't really like the post-production aspect of it because I'm doing it all. I don't know if you certainly don't edit your own podcast, I would imagine, but
I don't.
that's the
I
that's the
don't.
part that sucks, Craig.
Yeah,
So good for you.
it can be time consuming.
Yeah.
I know I
Yeah.
adjusted my color. It still doesn't quite look right, but that's okay. It looks a little reddish to me. I'm always adjusting my lighting and my color.
We can fix that.
Well, I could take some of that
you
red
fix
out if
that
you
one.
want.
Okay. Let me just see. Let me just see if I want to make any. I'm not going to do the camera thing again. I could change my drapes a little bit. Let me see. That's good. I have this. Show you quickly if you can. You can see. So I have a window over here, and there's the
Oh.
window, and that you see the drapes. You see that
Love
wall. Most of my wall is mahogany paneling, but that's a paisley fabric on my wall over
love
my
that.
leather couch. And then there's my conquistador. And I'm just going to do a little something. It's going to get a little brighter. I'm going to open one of the drapes. And the glass I have in my mahogany paneled den is kind of a sienna color. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Yes.
So it gets my face. Let me just try something.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, it's okay. I don't know.
We'll fix it.
So let's start this puppy up. Let's do this right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's go. You're getting requests to be on podcasts left and right, I imagine.
I get a lot of them, but yeah, I did see you guys DM'd me something funny where he'll just talk about the Timberwolves. He doesn't even care. And it's a very good point because I really enjoy my Instagram. That's my favorite thing. It's very creative, not as much work. I can just put a photo up and say a funny caption. But the people, you know, the old fans and my friends wanted me to do a podcast, and I didn't really want to do one because everyone has one. Plus, you had to have people, you know, the guest over to your house or garage wherever you do the podcast, and I didn't want that. And then during COVID, we all went split screen, so then I said I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that you have because I love hearing you. It was sad to see you walk off into the sunset. It would have
Yep. Sorry
15
about
years
that.
ago or so. No, it's fine.
No, it does. It does bother people. I will say, for me, it was exhilarating. It was one of the happiest days of my life, and I know I'm enigmatic that way. But I really enjoyed doing the CBS show, 5 years.
Yeah.
But I got bored with pop culture. I'm not really into pop culture. I was in my 20s. We did a lot of pop culture jokes. I'm not political, and my creative comedic sensibility is more irreverent and I like to say aristocratic, and I just got a little burned out. And that show was owned by the great David Letterman. I'm a big fan. Johnny Carson's my favorite, then Dave. But it really wasn't, I didn't think it was set up for victory. It was set up more as a placeholder because Dave was concentrating on competing with Jay. And I'm proud to say that we did very well. We had 7 writers and no band. And Conan had 18 writers in a band, and Kimmel had 12 writers in a band. So we had a smaller staff, but we did pretty well. And but I was happy to leave. You guys can comment when I finish. You guys can comment if you like.
Yeah, so we hope that this whole podcast just doesn't turn into like a Chris Farley sketch where we just say, "Hey, remember when this and happened, and remember when that happened? We love that."
Yeah.
But one thing that I do want to ask you about because you mentioned Conan. So when your show was on when basically Warren and I were in college, so I watched your show every single night, and I always preferred you to Conan, of course. But I've always was struck with Conan. His kind of shtick was more very self-depreciating, just kind of making fun of himself all the time. And yours was the yin to his yang, where you were, the opposite. And I always wondered, was that just a happy accident, or was that something that kind of was part of the decision of you getting that show?
Well, good question. But the way it is, So you guys are probably too young to remember Johnny Carson, but he was very cool and smooth and sophisticated. And then Leno and Letterman came along, and it was a whole different thing. My grandfather said it's now a dork festival, but that was my grandfather. But and just let me say, as I said, Johnny Carson's my favorite. Dave Letterman's my second favorite. For pure comedy, I think Conan is the funniest. But Conan had said in interviews that he was a tall guy who was not coordinated. And I was extremely coordinated. I played point guard at 6'5". I mean, so we're just different. We're just different people. And I did a joke on my Instagram. Actually, it was on the podcast where I said, when I did late night, they referred to me as the natural host. So the question I answered on my podcast was, if you weren't the natural host, what would you be doing? How would you adjust in late night? I said, well, I would be doing a lot of voices and a lot of juggling, and I would do characters. And but I don't have to work as hard because I'm the natural host. Something to that effect. But yeah, I think I was influenced growing up by guys that were cool and smooth. Johnny Carson. When I was younger, this is a movie, but I was a big James Bond fan, and I still am. I like Sean Connery. I love Daniel Craig. Yeah. And I'll give you this is a little different because this guy was not cool or smooth, but it's my favorite. It's my favorite sitcom because he's erudite, and I was a Frasier fan.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen that sitcom. So I was a fan of Frasier. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm breaking down some of the influences, some of the different styles, you know?
Yeah. And so that,
I'm curious.
Go ahead, Warren.
Sorry, Jeremiah. This happens a lot, Craig. Don't worry about it.
That's okay.
I'm curious.
One of the things I do, by the way, if I was one of you two guys and you want to follow up so the other guy can see, I go like this. I got something else to say. I'm going to say,
see, you know what?
You can do that.
We talked about that in the lead up to this, and we said if we do something like that, he's gonna think we're hacks. But no, that's the suggestion.
We used to do it at ESPN when we were partnered up, and the audience wouldn't see it because we were usually over highlights or over a scoreboard or something, full screen. But we just go, wait, I got one more thing to say here.
Perfect.
Little behind the scenes look at the anchor desk.
So Warren.
So he's ready to say something.
I wanted to ask you. Yeah,
see, he's ready to
ask you if. Oh God! See, I got to look though, Craig.
He's ignoring you. Yeah.
We're still working out the kinks, Craig.
So we actually brought on a friend to interview last week just to practice for this, and it obviously didn't help. And so we're talking about Conan. This brings me to like if I didn't have any other question I wanted to ask when you're on, this is the question I really wanted to get to. So I'm just gonna get it out now, and everything else is just gravy from here. So Conan, through the years, especially now that he has his new podcast, you kind of have gotten to hear more of his like actual kind of real life personality, right? Like he's gone on a Howard Stern and had a very serious, like 2-hour-long discussion with Howard Stern. So what I think I have always wondered, and what like a lot of Craig Kilborn fans over the years, I'm guessing probably wonder, is this persona of Craig that we have seen all the way from your time at, what was it, KCBA, Warren? Is that what it was? KCBA, all the way to your Instagram now. Like it is remarkably consistent. Like, and so like,
thank you. I take that as a compliment.
Absolutely. And so my question is like, what your significant other, what would she say is your persona? How much percentage of like your real life is that? Like is the Craigers we see on Instagram?
It's a question I get a lot. I've gotten for years. Is he real? What's going on? How much of this is an act and how much of this is real? And I don't deconstruct. I used to say, whatever the percentage that you like, whatever you like, that's the real me. Whatever you find irritating, that's the character. I used to say something like that. But I don't know. I mean, it is, I just think it's, I don't, again, when I don't deconstruct, I don't really know. I know my father told me I was very confident at a young age. And I was verbal, but I was pretty low key as well. I didn't really, in certain ways I was low key, where I wasn't like the class clown. I just I would be cool and say certain jokes at certain times. I really, enjoyed comedy growing up. My childhood was basketball and comedy. But I'll tell you something, and this might go off in a few directions, but when I was working in late night and in the entertainment industry, I noticed that there were a lot of miserable people and mood swing people. And I was like, I just went home and I looked up, I Googled, like, are some people just born happy? And science says yes. And I was like, I had a happy childhood. That's because my parents were great. They loved me. My dad was extremely funny, very supportive of me. My mom was the greatest. I have a great older brother, and I have an older sister. But my brother and I are really tight, and he's very different than I am. He's in the science fiction, and he was the lone valedictorian of his graduating class of 500. He's a software engineer, but we love basketball, and so I think what bothers me in society, this is where I'm going in a direction, is we have a lot of malcontents and people full of rage, and they complain. And I think we're too patient with them in society. I think I want to hear from the level-headed people as opposed to all these freaks on Twitter. So I don't know if that's answering your question, but it's kind of the way I went with it. I think if we are relatively happy people who are level-headed, and I jokingly celebrate it, maybe to poke at the malcontents. I'm not sure, but I think we're just too patient with all these whiners, in my opinion. What do you think of that answer? Is that That's a weird answer? I just cleared my throat.
Away from the mic. That's a pro move.
Well, there's supposed to be a button. I don't have a button. They usually have a button where you do that. It's early for me. I'm still having my coffee. I gave you choices of times. Usually I wake up early, and I woke up an hour later, got my beauty sleep. So I could have done it an hour later, but I didn't. So we're all good.
That makes me, so you mentioned you gave us multiple times. I legitimately want to know, now that we have a rapport, I can tell if we live by each other, I think we'd all become very good friends in real life. I could tell that already. So
yeah, we'd watch each other's dogs. Yeah.
We have been begging you, pleading with you for 8 months to be on our podcast, and we never actually thought you would ever do it. And you actually do say you would do it. And my first response to you is, okay, but actually Warren can't. Can you wait a week and a half?
Right.
What was your reaction like when you read that? Were you, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, and for the listeners out there, when you say you're begging 8 months, it wasn't like I was ignoring you. It was you were tactful with your begging. It was spaced out. So it was maybe 3 begs over 8 months. And then I said yes, but I'm one of those guys that doesn't mind. Usually in the morning I have my coffee. I was rewatching the Wolves' fourth quarter last night because they beat Sacramento, and I don't mind working or doing this on the weekend. Most people are like, weekends are sacred. So it didn't bother me, and I just wanted to do it because my schedule might get a little busy in a week. Who knows?
Well, Craig, I wanted to go back. We were talking a little bit about your early years, your formative years, and I want to know, was there one event in your childhood, early adulthood, that you kind of figured things out, and I imagine it involved looking into a mirror and literally audibly speaking something. I want to know what you said in that mirror.
I do say that in second grade is when I got a brain. When I don't know what you guys remember about kindergarten and stuff, but I started playing basketball in second grade. My brother was in fifth, and they had organized basketball in fifth and sixth. My dad put up a hoop in our driveway. My father wanted us to play. He wanted us to play baseball, but we weren't good at it. But we took to hoops. But second grade is when I really started thinking. I became aware My favorite player before I discovered Dr. J was Walt Clyde Frazier, the king of cool. He didn't show a lot of emotion. There was a tennis player later named Bjorn Borg, the Iceborg. He used to go up against McEnroe. He didn't show emotion. I enjoyed that. But there was a time, this is funny, I like this. I was driving with my mom, and I was a teenager. So this was way past second grade. And I loved my parents. And I was a passenger in the car. Maybe I was 14, 15. And I said, Mom, you and Dad are great, but honestly, I'm raising myself. I'm making my own decisions, and I'm raising myself. That's the kind of thing where, and it was, I mean, I felt that. I just felt like, anyways, it's how I felt. I remember I used to do jumping squats in the garage. That's where you put the weights on your back, and I had a pad, a little rolled up like towel or something, and I would do jumping squats. This is to help your leaping ability, and I had to do it every other day. Can't do it every day. And my dad looked in the garage once, and later he says, I don't know what it is about you, but you're driven, aren't you? You're dedicated. So I've always had that. Like, my dad was very funny and clever. He played piano by ear, but he worked in the human relations department of an insurance company, hiring and firing people because he had to get a job because he had 3 kids. But he was very talented, and he noticed that, I don't think my dad applied himself the way I did. And so that was part of. I had a drive at some point. And then once I got the late night show on CBS, I kind of exhaled because I'm not greedy and I'm ambitious, but there's really not a lot I want to do right now. There's not too much, and the stuff I want to do is pretty far fetched. Something with my character and scripted. So. I think it's, I had a happy childhood, and I know you're asking me if I said anything in the mirror, but I did remember saying that to my mom, that I'm raising myself.
So I promise, Craig, this will be my last fanboy question about your time at the Late Late Show. Okay. I always find it fascinating after 9/11 happened, how shows and kind of our culture kind of revved back up after 9/11. It's like when sports came back on, but specifically I remember how hard of a time it was weird of a time it was for like late night shows to come on. You also just so happened to have on one of my at the time favorite artists, who was the former lead singer of Toad the Wet Sprocket. You had on Glenn Phillips. I don't know if you remember him on the show. And he's singing a really poignant song called Darkest Hour. And I just remember sitting in my dorm room thinking, like, this was the perfect show post 9/11. And I just wanted to hear from your perspective, as somebody who had to navigate a funny, lighthearted show that made people feel good, if you felt that show landed, or was that as hard as I thought it would be, or just, I would love to hear your thoughts on post 9/11.
Well, I don't fully remember the particular show. I do know back in the office, we analyzed along with, Rob Burnett, who was my liaison, or the guy I dealt with at the Worldwide Pants at the production company. He was in New York. We talked about it because the shows it was such a extreme, tragic event that we weren't on the air for a while. None of the late night shows were, and then they came on. And to be honest, this is the stuff that I don't like doing publicly. I prefer sitting in my den with my friends and talking about certain things. This is where I'm apolitical. I was raised not to talk politics, but I just remember I had to do a desk chat about it. And I don't remember it being great at all. I can remember somebody saying, well, I was just saying it's difficult to make this decision to go forward. And then I said something towards the end, and somebody said, well, I'm glad you said that at the end because the first part was just okay, something to that effect. Because I was at a place where I'm doing a comedy show, and there were times, I will tell you later, in television where I was poignant and I was okay with it. But this was a weird experience for me. So we did the show, and I don't remember the guests like you do, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it because it wasn't an easy show to do.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like I said, it's still something that every 9/11, I just find myself going back and finding that clip of his performance, and just thought this just absolutely landed for me.
I did it. I'll tell you the poignant. There was a thing I did. So this was different, and this is where I'm not one of those guys that tries to. This is where I'm. Some people are strategic. Some broadcasters are, oh my God, if I show emotion, this will help me. This will show my vulnerability. So this is where I'm not promoting myself or playing a game. I just enjoy being creative. And anyways, this was in local television. And in Monterey, I was working in Salinas, Santa Cruz, Monterey, the 110 market. I was living in Carmel, and it was in the early 90s. And Magic Johnson, I was a big basketball guy, still am. And I don't, you guys might not remember this. He had to retire.
Right.
And eventually he came back a few years later. But I walked into the office, and I had driven, it's a 35-minute drive from Carmel, and I hadn't heard the news. It happened while I was driving. And I walked in, and a female news reporter who I was friendly with, but I didn't really know that well. She met me at the door, and she says, did you hear what happened? This basketball player, he's got AIDS. And you're going to be on at the top of the newscast today. And I just
How old were you at this time?
I was 30, 31 probably.
Okay.
And it bothered me that he was now known for this guy with AIDS. They didn't know his big smile or his passing ability. And I went on the air and I said this, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here on the air. I want to be with my buddies talking about magic, And people liked that. People really liked that when I was honest, because it was a sensational thing for the basketball player with AIDS. They didn't know his enthusiasm for the game,
Right.
So I actually worked in local news myself for a number of years, about 10 years. Then got out of that. I work for a manufacturing company now. And it does seem like there are obviously a lot of instances where you're put in weird positions where, how do you encapsulate something so profound and just, and the spotlight's on, and it's difficult. I mean, is that part of the reason why it maybe was easier to just say, look, I don't need any more of this limelight stuff. I'm walking away.
Absolutely. Because I say, I don't want to cover politics and talk politics. I'm an independent, so I'm above the political fray. There's this famous writer named Joan Didion, and she said she wasn't into American politics. I care about the issues, but the partisanship and the fighting, it's like, one of the things I say is I worked with some self-righteous people who, because of their political party, they felt special. And I said, well, I feel special by actually being special. By being talented and getting a scholarship to Montana State and going and doing late night, as opposed to my political affiliation, which might be a little harsh. I don't know. But the other thing is, social commentary. I don't want to do social commentary. I can do it in my private life and talk, to my friends about it, but I don't need to do it and don't want to do it and on the air. And I don't want to hear some of my comedy heroes. I don't want to hear Jerry Seinfeld talk politics or talk race relations, even though I would probably agree with a lot of stuff he said, but that's not his thing. He doesn't want to do it either.
Right. Yeah, and you really did get out of the industry, I mean, at a great time as far as not getting pulled into that, because I feel like it is almost impossible not to get pulled into that. Even somebody like Jimmy Fallon, who I would think is pretty apolitical. He had Trump on in 2016 and just got killed for even just talking to him,
Yeah. You're 100% right. Yeah. There is a huge freedom to not participating in the dysfunction of society. I just love it. And I actually, on my Instagram, I kind of celebrate. I say my life is I'm in my club chair, and then I'm in a French restaurant, and then I'm back to the club chair. Like I don't I don't participate in all the other stuff. Even though I'm compassionate and I care, I just do it privately.
Well, what's the answer, Craig? If we were to come to you and say, what is the cure for this these issues that we have? Is it just caring more about each other? Is it just having that self-love? Or I guess what do you see as the thing that'll kind of swing that pendulum back the other way?
Well, I don't think there's an easy answer. It's not self-love. I I do that comedically. I do think it's healthier to be self-accepting than self-loathing. But I always say, let's hear from the calm and level-headed. So that means the moderates in the middle. But the people who are malcontents and full of rage, they have a voice, mainly Twitter. And, I do hear people, there's some people on the left that say those voices aren't that many people, actually. I hope they're right. But sadly, I don't have the answer beyond saying I only want to hear from the calm and level-headed. So
who are unfortunately most times fairly reserved.
Yeah,
correct. They're not as vocal.
That's the unfortunate thing, is that they're the ones that speak the softest. But
yeah,
it's because they're enjoying life probably more than most. Well, I know we just have a few minutes left here.
Take your time. I'm getting into it. I can go. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Do you guys have more questions?
Okay.
I got some.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeremiah,
right.
yes. Jeremiah has his hand raised
like a pro. So, Craigers, you are big into basketball. That's the one sport I was never into. I'm trying to adopt the Pacers. They have a good young team, seem to be a little bit ahead of schedule. We got Ben Mathurin, seems to be really good. So I've been adopting the NBA because my kids have gotten huge into the NBA. My daughter lives and breathes basketball. She's 13 and just wrapped up her 8th grade season. My son is 10. What advice would you give to, because you like to speak to the young people. Now I'm asking you to speak to the really young people. What would you speak to those young basketball players, to my son and my daughter? What would be some advice you'd give them?
Well, I'd compliment them. My parents used to say sports keeps you out of trouble. When you're a kid and you're playing and you're addicted to hoops, or tennis or whatever sport, it's a positive thing for a kid. It keeps them, it motivates them. They learn how to work hard, but it also makes your life, more satisfying. I think it's great. What I did was I was obsessed with basketball, but I wonder how it works, because my dad, again, I wanted me to play baseball. I couldn't really throw the ball the right way. And then basketball, I was just coordinated and I could dribble at an early age. My dad showed me how to shoot a layup. Off your left leg, your right knee is up and your hand is up. And then I was on the sideline watching my brother practice. He was in 5th grade. I was in 2nd grade. I was on the sideline dribbling the ball. And the coach came over and said, "Are you left-handed? Why are you dribbling with your left hand?" I said, "Because I can already dribble with my right." So I practiced a lot, but it did come easily to me. And I can remember, when you're young in elementary school, you shoot a set shot. But then in 6th grade, I developed some sort of jump shot. And it was very difficult because you're small. Well, I went from 5'3" in 5th grade to 5'9" in 6th grade. I had a 6-inch growth spurt. So I was 5'9" in 6th grade. Then I was 6'4" by the time I was a freshman in high school. But when I was in elementary school, you sometimes you shoot the ball and your elbow's sticking out, and then I had to learn to keep the elbow in. And I would just say to your kids, just practice a lot. And I read all the the manuals, all those books and stuff. But it's a great sport, because in Minnesota everyone played hockey, and I played hockey for a couple of years, and you got to buy all that equipment and stuff. But basketball, you just put a hoop up in the driveway. It's fun to play with your friends, but you can shoot by yourself. And when you shoot by yourself,
yeah, that's great.
You get more shots than if you played 3-on-3. You get to, so shooting by yourself, there's a way to do it. Some ball players said, if you really work up a sweat and keep moving when you're by yourself, run to certain spots and work on different parts of your game. It's a great dedication, and it really helps you improve your game.
Craig, I wanted to ask you. My wife is a fan of the Thin Man series,
Wow.
and I know you're a throwback. You like
Very
the old
impressive.
movies. Yeah, I've tried to get into it. I've watched a few. I think they're okay. I want to get your impression on Thin Man, and maybe sell me a little bit on what am I missing there?
Well, when I first discovered it, I was, oh my gosh, this is from the 30s and this is pretty clever. Um, and it's Myrna Loy, and he was so good. What's his name? Oh gosh, he's so good. He's so smooth. I have to look it up. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. William Powell. But she's a socialite. He's a retired cop that now they're detectives. Nick and Nora Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Their dog Asta. And so the cops would come over. They were in bed, and then there's, I think they're in separate beds back then because that's how they had to do it. And,
Right, of course.
And they had the dresser there, and the cop is looking through the dresser, and she says, "There's a man going through my drawers." And there were these clever little lines. I was like, "This is funny," and yeah, it was clever wordplay. You don't have to just watch the first one, and that's it. Just stop. Because I'll tell you what else to watch. Just watch a bunch of Hitchcock, because Hitchcock's unbelievable.
Yeah.
All the old Hitchcock movies. There's so many. Strangers on a Train, North by Northwest, Spellbound, all these different movies. But I go around Los Angeles and other places and go to nice bars, and I have martinis. And the young bartenders, I'll say, "Oh, that's a cute little glass. That's a Nick and Nora glass." And they say, "Yep, that's a Nick and Nora glass." And I'll say, "You know what that's from?" "Nope. It's from the Thin Man series in the 1930s. So these little martini glasses, if you purchase them, they're known as Nick and Nora glasses, named after Nick and Nora Charles. They're a smaller type of martini glass. Isn't that exciting?
That is. I'm gonna I'll have to get a few of those for my wife because she loves that series. I love the dog. I do like the dog. I get a kick out of the dog.
Right.
So on your podcast, Craig, you do your top 5 movies, and I understand you also are very clear that they can move around, right? It can be a fluid list. Doesn't have to be Doesn't have to be hard. Yep. But if I were to ask you to write down your top 500 movies, right? So all your favorite movies are there, 500. But you go to the columns that sort by date, right? You click the sort by date column. What would be the 5 most recent movies of your 5 most recent favorite movies?
I'll just give you, because I completely understand why people do not want to watch old movies. I don't relate to it. They make me happy. I have a friend who doesn't really want to watch anything in black and white, and I think they're great. And they make film noir. It does something to me, but I don't force it on people, just like I don't force jazz music on people because they might find it boring, but it's very relaxing to me. Bill Evans, it's beautiful music. He's a piano player. Mm-hmm. But I'll just give you some, and it may disappoint you because it does. It's a thing where I don't always watch Top Gun. I haven't seen either Top Gun. I don't want to. I apologize. That's offensive to people. I've never seen an episode of Friends. I like Daniel Craig a lot, and I liked him in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is a newer movie that I really enjoy. And obviously I love him in Skyfall and all the Bond movies. The one movie that was made in 2000, I think 4 or 5, was Sideways, which is a really good movie about this relationship with these two opposites, these two guys that are friends and opposites, and they take advantage of the wine country up in Santa Barbara. The movie takes advantage of it. It's pretty cool. Let's see. What else is there? I mean, so I can't say a movie from the 70s that I recently watched, like Three Days of the Condor. You can say that. 3 Days of the Condor, Robert Redford, is a really good movie. Let's see. Aha. I'm going to tell you guys something. I like Clint Eastwood, and I actually was fortunate to meet him and have dinner with him because I knew his wife at the time. And I just rewatched The Mule, which was a 7.0, solid movie. 7.0 is a solid number.
Sure.
And I watched Gran Torino, which I enjoyed. There's a movie called In the Line of Fire, maybe late 80s, early 90s with John Malkovich and
Yeah.
Clint. So I enjoy Clint Eastwood movies. They're very easy to watch. Let's see. What else do I watch? I do have these, I have my top 5 movies that are like The Graduate, North by Northwest, and Chinatown. But those are extremely high rated movies. And I tend to watch, I've said this on the podcast, movies that are rated in the 7.1, 7.2, even a 6.8, which is, it should be higher than that. That's the firm. Certain movies I watch over and over again. They're just easy to watch and entertaining. But I'm trying to think of other movies that, what are some recent movies that you guys like? I want to see if I've seen them.
You know, a great movie that Jeremiah, I know you like quite a bit and that I really enjoyed was Whiplash. Did you see that one, JK?
Loved Whiplash.
Simmons.
Didn't see it. Sorry.
It's
I don't
good.
want to. This could be we could be going down a road where you guys are going to be so disappointed that I haven't.
I do have
seen.
one. I do have one.
Yeah.
I do have one. I think it was mentioned in your Ryan Russillo interview, but I don't know if you watched it or not, was Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh, that was good. Yeah. I enjoyed that.
I really liked that.
I enjoyed that movie. I watched it. Interestingly, I was going to watch it again, and then I started and then I wasn't in the mood, so that might say something. So I might not see it again. There are certain movies that I've seen, I go, that's good, like Social Network, but I tried to watch it again. I wasn't interested anymore in it. I saw it. That was enough. So there are other movies that I love to rewatch over and over again.
Craig, what's your go-to movie snack, treat, or beverage?
Well, in my mahogany panel den where I am right now, one of the things we do when I'm not going to cook, if I say I'm tired, because I like cooking, I make a lot of salmon, I make different dishes. I'll order Indian food. We have a nice place nearby that delivers Indian food, and I'll open a bottle of wine and we'll sit in the den, my significant other, and we'll have Indian food and watch. Usually it's not a sporting. So she doesn't always watch sporting events with me because they're too stressful. So it'll be a movie.
When you say it's stressful for your significant other and you to watch sports, like is she invested in the Timberwolves too and gets stressed, or does your stress making her stressed? Like what who's stressed in
I'm
that
not
situation?
stressed, but she doesn't watch anymore because the game itself was stressful and the Wolves are not in the past, had not made the playoffs, so they would lose close games. Now I'll just show her highlights. It's just something that she gets into it a little too much. I mean, which I think is cool. Like she's not oblivious to it. She's watching, and if D'Lo misses 3 shots in a row, that's it's like she can't. She's out of the room. She's out of the den. Of course, last night he made his first 7 3-pointers on D'Lo bobblehead night.
So
How
that
often do you
actually
get up
brings
there
two
for
things
games?
together. So we're talking about movies.
By the way, I want to help you
Go
guys.
ahead, Jeremiah.
It's not a big deal when you talk
Yes.
over each other, but what bothers me is when you do it, you seem devastated, and then you guys get silent for a while and wait. So why don't you practice talking over each other and then keep going? One of you keep going. I mean, it's like
That
was the plan.
We actually talked about
Yeah.
it. Jeremiah, you're supposed to keep
Yeah.
going. That's the
Let's
plan.
just keep going.
go, Jeremiah. Now say something.
All right. No more devastation. You called us out. Okay, thank you. So speaking of movies, I'm going to bring two subjects
Okay.
together like a real pro. Okay, we just watched Hustle the other night. It was Adam Sandler's movie
right.
about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
basketball scout and it had
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony
Yeah.
Edwards
Yep.
from the Timberwolves. So did you watch
You
that?
know, I actually finally did a week ago, and it was good. And Ant was good. That's his nickname, Jeremiah Ant. And yeah,
Thank you.
it was a good movie. I tend not to like sports movies because I watch so much live sports, and then they try to recreate the drama of sports. So I don't really watch a lot of sports movies. But yeah, it was good.
You listening to much music these days? You mentioned Bill Evans, some jazz. Is that pretty much what you stick to, or are you listening
I'll name
to
some stuff.
other stuff? What do you got in the rotation?
They'll make fun of me. I have Pandora for years, so I have a Pandora station because I like to. I don't like to pick the music. I want them to surprise me. Of course, I skip a lot. So in the morning, I listen to Bill Evans, which I don't skip at all. They just play great songs by Bill Evans and other artists playing that type of music. But when I go for my hike or my walk, that's how I get my exercise. I have the AirPods in, and I chose a station. I could have chosen any station, but there's one currently. It's the Boss Skaggs station, and it's not necessarily for Boss Skaggs, although there's some good songs there. George is my favorite. But I'm just going to give you songs that I don't skip over. And some of them are, so this might be probably from the 80s and 90s, even though Boss Skaggs' big album was in the 70s, Silk Degrees. Stand Back, Stevie Nicks is a good song. They'll play I'll Be Around is a great song by the Spinners. And they play Hall & Oates covering I'll Be Around. Eddie Money Shakin' is interesting because these are up-tempo songs while I'm walking. I like West End Girls by and Domino Dancing by the Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah.
Let me just think what else plays on there where theme from Cat People, Putting Out Fire with Gasoline, Bowie. A couple different versions of that. Yeah. This Is Not America by Bowie. Under Pressure by Queen. Let's see, what else do they play that's really nice? Out of Touch by Hall & Oates. So that's the kind of stuff and I listen to, but I also I'm not musical myself, but it's certainly something I'm really into, and I talk to my brother about it a lot. My mom taught piano. I told you my dad played piano by ear. Everyone could sing. My brother played piano and was actually in a band for a while, and he could sing. So we talk a lot of music. And I have some funny guilty pleasures like what's his name? Benny Mardones, Into the Night, which I use on my Instagram. It kind of builds. And I go out to, I have a little place in the desert out near Palm Springs, and they have a lot of live music. And what happens is there's this resort from the 1920s called La Quinta Resort, and there's a Morgan's in the Desert is the restaurant from 1926, and it's a great restaurant with a piano player, and I know the piano player. And he'll be playing Sinatra and Tony Bennett and the standards. And I'll say, play Careless Whisper by George Michael. And he'll play it. And it's so funny. It's just, so there's something comedic and beautiful about live music. There's something. And then the other day I requested Manilow. And he played Manilow. And I just loved it. It was fun. I love live music.
So you started the podcast with your new, well, I'll call it new, the cleansing breath.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like that's something that has debuted since your Instagram. Has that always been something you've done, or is that part of your new, the new Craig that's emerged, the cleansing breath? Before we start,
great question. Whenever I do something, like when I start working on something or editing something, little ideas come to me. And the cleansing breath started on Instagram. Wasn't premeditated. I just felt it. And I'm telling you, my friends, there's this guy, his name's Alex Sulkin. He's the executive producer on Family Guy. And he wrote Ted with Seth MacFarlane. He loses it. I had him on my podcast. And we had to cut out the part where I started. I go 3, 2, 1, and he just started laughing and giggling, and he couldn't control it. But yeah, there are different things that we do that we like comedically. Like I used to say, proud of you. I would sign my 8x10. If Warren wanted an 8x10, I said, Warren, proud of you. I would sign them with that. And so proud of you guys. Oh, there you go. That's hilarious. So that was something I did, 20 some years ago, was proud of you. And, again, I don't deconstruct, I just do. And, the breath is, I get a kick out of it as well as other people. Makes me laugh. Alec and I were trying to figure out what it is. Am I mocking people? Am I mocking my inner peace? I don't know what it is. Did you guys have an opinion on what it is or what?
I honestly just think it's it's a level set, right? It's a spiritual, internal, just That's here right. we go, like whatever you have going on in your life, we're just resetting here and we're going to be in the moment. That's how I interpret it.
Yeah, my wife she's a health and wellness teacher, and she tells her little 5, 6, 7-year-olds to just take a deep breath. If you're feeling any kind of feelings, good feelings or bad feelings, just
it is very healthy. It's
like,
extremely healthy to do deep breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And my significant other has said you need to do more deep breathing. But it feels good, but I think I'm mocking the world when I do it. I'm not sure, but I
Here's kind of how we want to end things, and just again, unbelievably gracious of you to come on this podcast with 20 listeners.
We get 21. So cool. We've done our job.
If there was one question that you think we should have asked you, what would that question be? But hold up. Tell us what that question is, but don't give us the answer. We will just have to live with regret that we never asked you that for the rest of our lives.
Right.
Oh, so, okay, you want me to answer the question you should have asked me? Is that what you're saying?
No.
What are you saying?
Opposite. He said, so what's the question? The one question we should, now you left.
Oh, I see.
The one question we should have asked didn't, and we need you not to answer it because we need to live with the regret for the rest of our lives. As the lesson for now.
You guys are clever, and I don't want to say deep. Let's see. Mr. Kilborn, can you still dunk a basketball? Can you still dunk?
How great is that?
Oh, wow.
How great is that?
With authority.
We'll never know.
And we'll never know. Thank you so much. I mean, this was a dream get for us, man. You'll never know. We appreciate it so much. Hey, let's do it again sometime down the road.
When you guys get 40 listeners, I'm back.
Oh boy,
we'll let you know. Okay.
I'm going to grab a Nick and Nora glass right now, shake up a martini, and watch the football game.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Craig.
Please do. Enjoy your day, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.